Hello and welcome. So in our previous tutorial, we talked about how left join works. We summarized left join as zipping the right dataset onto the left dataset. And we call the enroll functions on the three datasets to confirm that left join keeps all the observation from the left dataset and any common observations from the right dataset. So now, let's move on to talk about the right join function, which, as you can guess from the name, acts entirely opposite to the left join function. So let's first take a look at the diagram together to see how right join works. As you can see here, this is a diagram for the right join function. So after we call right join on the two datasets, the blue dataset and the green dataset, we first keep a copy of the green dataset, right? Which means that we keep or copy every data from the right dataset into our new data frame. As you can see, we copy down ID2, ID3's X2 data, B1 and B2 into the new dataset, right? Next, we zip the left dataset onto the new data frame we just created. So we find ID2's observation X1 in the blue dataset and copy it down. However, ID3 does not show up in the left dataset, so we assign an NA to its X1 column. Okay, so now let's go back to the code and take a look at how right join works on the WDI and cow data. As you can see here in line 665, I call right join on the two datasets. And this is what I have. So from this new dataset we just created using right join, we can see that almost all of the columns or almost all of the rows in the Milix Y columns are filled. Some of the cells are empty. This is because that the original dataset has those cells empty. Okay, so you may remember from our previous left join lecture video that Milix Y represents the WDI dataset's Milix variable column, as you can see here. The comparison is drastic, right? So maybe this part is not obvious, but take a look at the Milix Y column from the left data we created using left join, and take a look at the Milix data we created using the right join. So we can see that although there are some observations that are lacking, but most of the observations in the right data are being kept. So not most of, I'm sorry, all of the observation in the right data sets are being kept, right? So the problem with confirming our observations purely based on the data set is that we cannot get a convincing result, right? Because some of the cells might already have NA in them. So a more direct way to prove our observation is to call the enroll function, as we did for the left join. Okay, so as you can see here, this is the result we get from the enroll function. So we get 9,650 rows from the newly created right data. And we get 10,662 rows from the cow data, which is the left data set. And we get the identical number of rows as the right data set, right? After calling enroll on WDI data, which is the right data. So this actually confirms our observation that right join keeps all the data from the right data set. Okay, so that's how right join works. The other thing I want to talk about is how the Milix X and Milix Y variable, as you can see here in the right data, is causing a lot of confusion, right? So we have to go back to the left join data set to figure out which one is Milix X and which one is Milix Y. So to resolve this problem, what we can do is simply rename our dataset's Milix variable by using the rename function, right? So the general format of rename function is we input a dataset, we input the new column name we want to create, which is Milix cow, and we input the column that we want to rename to the new name we just input, right? So after doing that, we have the two new data sets, which have their Milix variables renamed. And now let's just call the right join on the new data set. As you can see here, we have the right join, the right data new, which is the new data that we just created. So in here, we can see Milix name becomes either Milix cal or Milix WDI instead of Milix X or Milix Y. Okay, so that's all for today's lecture. So I hope at this point you already know how left join works, how right join works, and have a general approach to have a general understanding of how joining function works as a whole. So in our next tutorial, we'll talk about full join and inner join, which are the two most commonly used joining functions in R. Thank you for your time and hope you see you in the next recorded tutorial.